And we are back on the build phase. I'm Mr. Ben, and today I want to talk about a constellation of topics, but the axle around which most of these topics rotates is the recent post to the Upper Deck blog. So there's some spoilers in here for the Fractured Family arc, which I have not really been paying that close of attention to because it's kind of cool that there's been so much going on that we've gotten multiple 200 card boxes this year, and at least with the case of the boys and AEW kind of right next to each other. There's been so much to digest. These Fantastic Four cards have largely fallen beneath my notice on this show, and I will course correct for that at some point. The main thing I want to talk about with these is not the card reveals themselves. Well, sort of tangential to the card reveals. So I guess I'll start there. So this article was published on the 31st of August. We're here 5, 6 days after it came out talking about it. The first card that we see is a space basic location. Now, I I am of two minds on these basic locations. It We just need them. Like, it kind of sucks a little bit. Like, I'm not the hugest fan in devoting slots in the boxes to things like locations. The more slots we can devote to new cards with new powers that I can get excited about, the better. On the other hand, if anybody's even paying a little bit of attention to what's going on in the community, the sets that have space and earth for illustrated have gotten increasingly harder to find. And if we want the game to be accessible to new people, honestly, this reprint of a space basic probably should have happened back when the Fantastic Four came out the first time. So the fact that they're doing it now, I can't be excited about it, but it is a necessary thing. It's sort of like shrink wrap on the boxes. I'm not excited to have to throw that plastic away to send that to the landfill, but it's something we have to do to get these cards to us. That's probably not a great comparison. But okay, the art on this space though, I like very much. And considering the art on the previous space locations is pretty meh, I'm thrilled to have something a little more interesting to look at for my decks that I may want to run that basic in. So let's take a look at this level 1 maker. This is a Frightful affiliated 2/5/6. Man, there's a lot of words on this card. Anything is possible. You start the game with an invention pile, which may include frightful inventions and any others that characters in your deck can create. So I guess they're doing that so to not give him the inventor keyword, because normally you only get the invention pile if you have the inventor. This is essentially giving him the inventor keyword, but using the keyword anything as possible instead. That is a little weird. At the start of the game, shuffle those inventions into your deck. This game, you can only play inventions, or you can play inventions ignoring team restrictions. Okay, I should have just read the whole power before I started to comment on it, because clearly, right there, the reason they're handling the creation of his invention deck is by adding cards to your deck. Now, anybody who's listened to me on the show for literally any amount of time, you've heard me say things like thin it to win it. We want to thin our decks in order to get to our win conditions, in order to get to our most impactful cards. We need to be able to have fewer cards in our deck. I heavily prioritize card draw as a function of getting to the things that I want to see the most. So I am not a big fan of fattening the deck. One of the best things about inventions is that this is like a second hand. This is a resource of cards that's not coming from your deck that you can go into and you can selectively fish into. Shuffling a bunch of inventions into your deck, that I, like, on some level that misses the point of what makes inventions good. But what's the payoff? So surely Super Awesome Games is aware that handling it this way, it's going to hurt your overall draw percentages. This is kind of a turning on its head of the invention mechanic. So what do we get out of it? I'm going to solve everything. If character on your side would create an invention, instead reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, put an invention from among them into your hand, and the rest on your bottom, so it doesn't trigger a shuffle. And when you play an invention, the maker gains an XP. It requires 4. Wow, wow, wow. So we've seen this type of experience condition before. The original Professor X had to, I think, recruit an X-Men, or maybe it was just recruit a character, but he had a flip 5 cards. You had to pay for it to be able to do his thing to look at 5 cards. this happens anytime somebody would create an invention. So most of the time you're going to have to pay for that, although there are some inventors where it's a trigger. Uh, that feels like a very like there's so much going on there. I'm not like how many. So your invention pile is just the frightful inventions and any others that characters in your deck can create. So it doesn't sound like this grants access to the neutral inventions, but if you have another inventor in your deck, it would. And you're going to want that for the I'm Reed Richards for the level up. You're going to need more than like if you only have the frightful ones. I think that's just the Doombot. So that's a 4 mana 7/7, which we love 4 mana 7/7s on the show. But if you're waiting till turn 4 to get your first XP, this guy just dies. So you can't do that. So you are going to have to shuffle the gadget, the weapon, the automaton, like the generic inventions are going to have to be shuffled in, plus whatever. Does this make like the flying bathtub? That's not what it's called. I think it's called the Fantastic Art. Does that make that playable? I don't know. It does let you play the inventions ignoring team restrictions. So I think without that, this guy would be dead on arrival. There'd be no possible way to play this guy because now not only do you have to draw the inventions, you have to draw the activators. You don't have to draw the activators now, and you have a way to, as long as he's face up, sift for the inventions with 5 on defense that is defensively slanted but not large defense. So there are probably going to be turns where he's going to be face down. No, 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 it's not at the start of turn. Sorry, I made that up. It's whenever somebody invents, but he needs to be face up in order for that to work, right? Otherwise, you pay the yellow to invent and you go to an empty invention deck unless the maker is face up. Does it clarify if that is online even if he's face down? It doesn't. But I think we would, man, if a character on your side. So that's not phrased as like a trigger that happens and resolves and permanently affects the game. That's phrased to me as something that triggers when someone tries to create an invention. You get this other thing instead. So yeah, I think he has to be face up in order to use the I'm gonna solve everything to sift Scry 5, basically looking for an invention. Do they tell us what he levels into? Of course they don't. I I hate this snap. There have been so many times where we've gotten one half of a main character and I'm trying to do some kind of analysis and I'm like, where does this go? The payoff for this has to be big because this is asking a lot of you as a player. It's going to impact, it's going to negatively impact your overall deck construction, your draw consistency. Uh, I guess we do still have Wakandas in the Illustrated Universe and a bunch of inventions or equipment, so there could be ways to potentially fish that stuff out a little quicker. But it's a lot. It's asking you to do quite a few things and do them relatively quickly because by turns like 3, 4, that 5 defense is going to be outclassed. Um, yeah, I genuinely don't know what to make of that guy. Okay, let's move on to the Afterlife Transporter. This is a 3 cost Fantastic Four and Frightful affiliated equipment invention that you get 1 copy of. Bring back to life. During your build phase, you may exhaust a ready main character on your side. If you do, put a Fantastic Four or Frightful supporting character from your KO pile into your hand. Hmm. Hmm. There's certainly going to be specific use cases where getting one more use out of a character is going to be really, really good. You're going to have to get this online, and probably you're not going to necessarily use it the turn you play. Oh man, and you're giving up the attack or whatever with your main character. So for like a defensive, like supporty type main character, sure. I could see there are main characters that you don't necessarily want to attack with. This gives you something to do with them. That is cool. It's pretty narrow in what it allows you to recur out of the KO pile, and you still have to pay to play that character again. So you're not going to be able to like if this put something straight into play, that would be ridiculous. That would be really really strong. You would do this on like turn 6 and you'd get your 5 drop out of your KO pile and your 6 drop and have this big burst. But that's not That's not how it works. You're still going to have to be able to play whatever. So that almost makes me think like you would use this to like recycle a Herbie or something small. So you underdrop this on a turn where you also get something defensive out. Like, I mean, Herbie's the example that comes immediately to mind. Um, there's going to be times where getting that one card out of your KO pile is going to look excellent, but you've got to invest three. Now it's during your build phase, and the recruit's part of the build phase, so you're going to use this the turn it comes into play for sure. And it just feels like it's going to be kind of narrow which main characters are going to want access to this thing. Because not every main character is willing to sacrifice their exhaust to draw a card. And that's kind of what this boils down to. Definitely going to be useful in the right kind of combos, though. Okay, the last card here in this spoiler article is something that we really need to talk about. But before I do that, I want to take a minute to give a shout out to all my patrons and name a few of them here: Brad, Jason, Justin, Patrick, Peter, all the people that support the show. You guys keep the lights on around here. If you like what we're doing, patreon.com/thebuildphase. I appreciate all the support. Join the coolest clubhouse in Versus. Okay, back to Machine. Now, I'm going to take a running start at this because it wasn't that long ago where I confidently asserted that I think Super Awesome Games Upper Deck is done with the ban and replace. They're just not going to ban and replace anymore. They're using featured formats for that instead. They're printing cards like Mimic where they can errata how the keyword works after the fact, and the cards don't actually say on themselves what they do. I'm not a huge fan of that method of keeping tools and levers alive for them to adjust things when they become problematic. But hey, it's probably a lot cheaper, and there is certainly something to be said for them not having to print corrections to mistakes. When we, so I, it might not have been the show. I think I might have been when I went on Team Apex's podcast last, maybe, was when I was talking about that. But so I was pretty sure we were never going to see another ban and replace. I felt pretty confident in that tool had been, much like the 400 card boxes, retired from the game of Versus. It was a thing that used to happen back in the day. We can tell stories about it, but never will someone bear witness to it happening again. So fast forward quite a bit to the latest incursion list, and on this incursion list, the machine had not gotten hit. And people were saying, even without the Sentinels, this machine. Now, I don't think the machine is quite as obnoxious without Sentinels, but I will concede it is still pretty obnoxious. It can be anything that can reduce characters' costs to zero is prone for abuse. It has the potential to be obnoxious, and you should kind of see it coming. So the last card we're going to talk about in this card reveal has, importantly, the collector number FAN024 with an asterisk. Now, the other times in Versus history where we have seen collector numbers that have the asterisk has been, if the preamble of this didn't tell you already, or it has been cards that have been banned and replaced. So this is all, even though they don't call it out in the article, and I don't know why they wouldn't explicitly say it, just say, hey, we're doing a ban and replace. Like, it's so weird that they just kind of like floated out there for us to notice on our own. But this is a machine with tremendously improved artwork. I kind of wish it wasn't still called the machine, given that machine is a keyword for a subtype of equipment in this game. Calling this literally anything other than machine would be helpful, but it is still called machine. It is a one cost, one copy invention. Make things right. When this machine appears, choose one for it to gain. You pay one less to recruit supporting characters to a minimum of one, or supporting characters on your side at +2/+2. Minimum of one. There it is. So probably what the machine should have been all along. The reason everybody, maybe not everybody, that's not fair, but many people were calling for this card to be destroyed. The reason this card is on the ban list in the modern format has now been, well, or will be, when this set releases, officially corrected. And I do think it's fair to phrase it that way. This was a mistake. It never should have been zero. As much as I loved drawing my whole deck, as much as I loved the small window of time where we got to live in a draw your whole deck Second Chance Format World. I loved it. I had a great time with it. But this is toxic nonsense that should have never been allowed to exist in our game. I am super happy to see Ban and Replace come back, and I am happy to see it come back in this specific way, updating the artwork to be, in my opinion, much cooler art, and fixing this issue with this card. Now, the question many people have had already is this going to be legal at the regional that's coming up? Now, I am not affiliated with the regional. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but what I gathered from the Facebook announcement that Scott made about this topic is that it is still going to be contingent on whether or not Upper Deck gets the product out. So this ban and replace doesn't go in effect until the expansion that contains this card comes out. So, and if this has changed, again, if you're going to this event, don't take my word for it. Talk to Scott, look at his Facebook post. But the way I read it was Upper Deck wants this to go into effect once the set releases. So if the set doesn't release before the regional, the existing machine as it is will still be how the card is worded until such time this card comes out. I believe that's correct, but again, I'm putting like quadruple asterisks here because I don't want to give somebody wrong information for this regional. So check with the people who are running that event. But that is my understanding of how it all is going to like fit together and the reasoning why. So, wow, wow, wow. I don't really care about any of the cards in this card reveal. I hate to say that. Like that's so rude. But I don't know what to make of the Maker without seeing what he levels up into. All the words on him are kind of interesting, but they could, like Kid Kaiju had a lot of words on him too, and that didn't end up being something that was super fun to play. The invention is whatever. The basic location is fine. We need it, but I'm not excited. But man, this machine, this I am very excited about. This is awesome. This is Upper Deck listening. It's a little wild to me that it took this long to get some action on the machine because that thing was disgusting like 2 years ago. We all knew about it. But it's nice to see that this change has finally happened, and I like this much better than an outright ban. Like, give us a version of because the +2/+2 version of this is not broken at all. That's perfectly reasonable, and it's fun to play with that. So losing the whole card, I mean, I thought that was the only way we were going to solve this. I thought they were done with ban and replace, and I am happy to be wrong about that. I think that's very cool. So I really want to like quadruple underline praising Upper Deck for making a good choice here, making a good call here. I offer criticism when I think they do things wrong. So this is a fantastic, good decision, and maybe I'm being effusive with the praise on it, but it's been a long time coming, and I love seeing it. And I think this is so much better than just a straight up ban or like an incursion destroy. Such a better choice. So very happy with everything in this. With regard to AEW, I know the cards have been out for a little while yet, and I have not yet done a full set review. It is on my mind. I kind of wanted to wait until I had the cards in hand. I did the boys using the Pocket Versus app. Shout out to Obs, friend of the show. And it probably puts like clearer images of, well, it definitely, like, I don't know what probably, it definitely puts clearer images of the card on screen, but it's a little less fun. Like there's something about having the tactile, the cards in my hand that I really enjoy when doing card reveals. I like opening the plastic there on camera. So if it goes on too many more weeks here before I can finally get my hands on some AEW, I will eventually break down and use a digital assist to get that set review out there for everybody. But I'm trying to stay strong because this set this set's wild. I really want to be able to have the wrestler dudes in my hands. Wait, that sounds so insane. I really want to be able to have the cards in my hands for this one because it's just has there ever been an expansion that's been crazier than this one? Like that in terms of like what a weird fit. Even the people who are excited about it, even the people who are wrestling fans, I think y'all can admit that this is an unexpected, unconventional choice to include. And I mean, I've talked before about my journey with kind of being against it and then getting won over by good logic from Peter. But it's still, even though I think it has its place here and I'm in support of it and I'm here for the silliness, like I'm all in, I think we can still acknowledge that it's a little silly. And for those reasons, as much as I don't like putting a delay on it, I really want to get the cards in my hand before I do the set reveal for that one. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to let it go too much longer though, because I think those cards absolutely uh, deserve full appreciation of a set review. So okay, I guess I will leave it there. So until next time, go win some games.